into discretion. We've talked about discretion before. Discretion is all about giving someone in law enforcement or in the criminal justice world decision-making power. And when we're talking police, we're talking they make a lot of decisions on a daily basis: who to pull over, who to stop for what kind of violations, who to arrest. All that stuff kind of goes into discretion. When you need to search something, when you need to do this, do that. All of it is about decision-making. Their job really is a lot of decision making. And in today's world, we talk a lot more about why they should have that much decision making, why we should leave a lot of things in police officers' hands. So especially with the media portraying police officers so poorly, it's probably a topic we'll hear about a lot more, even in the future. Now, we tend to believe that, in general, police officers are trustworthy. Certainly, a few police officers may not be trustworthy in our world, and certainly we've seen that with the media's portrayal. But in general, this is a position where we choose people that we feel we can trust. And so we trust them and their training to be able to handle this type of situation, because they do have a lot of training and a lot of experience for making these types of decisions. Certainly someone that's had 30 years of experience as a cop would be able to better handle discretion than someone that's brand new on the job. Also, this interaction constantly with people, constantly with human behavior, kind of gives them knowledge of how people act and how people react to situations. They might even be able to predict something's going to happen when they do pull someone over. So you may see them take extra care if it looks like a suspicious behavior going on. And lastly, discretion is left a lot of times in police officers' hands because they themselves are putting themselves in harm's way. So there could be in numerous situations where a police officer is put in a situation where they may have a threat to their life or a risk to their life. And being able to protect themselves might be a big part of that. So when we talk later on about when to use force on someone, this could be a major decision, something to protect themselves where they might have to use deadly force or some other violent force to prevent harm on themselves. Now, furthermore, a lot of things that go into making these decisions would be stuff like the nature of the crime. So what kind of crime is it? How are they acting? The attitude of the wrongdoer can certainly go a long way. I'm sure you've heard of people not getting a ticket when they've been pulled over because they were kind of in a good mood and not being sassy to the police officer. But certainly if the police officer comes to your window and asks what you were doing, if you come back with a bunch of bad attitude and negative attitude, they might be more willing to give you a ticket. Hate to break it to you, being nice and being courteous can go a long way to getting a warning on something like a traffic violation. Certainly, there may be scenarios where a relationship between the victim and the offender can play a role in things. So certainly, they may take that into consideration. For example, if there's a abuse going on, they may take into consideration that the victim may not want to tell them the whole truth. So certainly, they may be more suspicious in that type of scenario. But then some police forces have stricter policy when it comes to discretion. We talked about professional policing and how they tend to have very strict guidelines on when you can use discretion and when you can't. So certainly it could be your own company's, your own police force's goals or policy. And lastly, there are certain things that require a mandatory arrest. For example, a lot of domestic assault ends up resulting in mandatory arrests. And sometimes, lastly, hate to say it, but bureaucracy can be a factor of why a police officer doesn't make an arrest or doesn't hand out a ticket. Bureaucracy being the amount of paperwork and logistics that you might have to go through if you do that action. So certainly police officers might consider that as well. Now, last thing when it comes to discretion is something I felt was something important to talk about, especially with the media talking about what is appropriate force to use in a situation. Now, police officers have to make a very quick decision that if someone is resisting arrest, or someone's being an assailant, or if someone has a weapon, they have to make a very quick response. And here's kind of a model that's used with training that helps people determine what they could possibly do. For example, you can see that if you have someone that's being a resistor and they're moving and they're trying to avoid you, a taser might be an appropriate response. Certainly might depend on the individual. It may be also a chemical spray or a canine that has to stop them. There's certainly different options depending on the type of police officer. But if someone, for example, may cause physical harm or death to you that could be serious, that's when they tend to support the idea of using firearms or lethal force. So you see that on the far right of the screen to the very top, where the most serious cases just have what we call lethal force. But certainly the lesser situations where you have someone cooperative, there won't really be a whole lot of response. But important things to consider as we're talking about force, every single situation is different, but the courts have ruled that if someone's just running away, you shouldn't just shoot them to stop them. That's why we have things like tasers and chemical spray and canines, and the cop can certainly just take someone down or use one of those, some sort of impact weapon or control instrument to try and knock them down out of the situation. So if someone's running away from you, there were times in our history where cops just shot the person to make them stop running. And there have been times where the people have died. And the Supreme Court's ruled that you shouldn't be doing that. So police officers have to have some sort of threat to their life, not just a felon running away. And lastly, you can certainly look at everything that's going on right now with the Ferguson case, the media's perception, and all the things being discussed about police. This will be a topic that we discuss probably for the next couple of years, is whether or not police officers are using appropriate force. Anyway, this is all for the discretion video. Please look to your sheet for guidance on what your next task is to do. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.